my creatives, and welcome to another video. So today I'm going to share with you how I made some DIY postcards, and these are going to be in a mixed media style because I love to make mixed media things and I love to art journal. But you can also use this with just papers or collage. It doesn't really matter, but I really enjoy doing mixed media, and it's also a great project if you want to use a lot of your scraps up, because as you can see here, I have this big box of scraps, and these are my small scraps. I also have a box with big scraps, and I have a box with images, and I really need to get through these boxes because it's piling up. My scraps are piling up and I need to use them. That's also why you see me use a lot of collage elements in my art journals, because really things have to be used at this point. So first I went through my scrap box and I picked out papers that I thought would look great together as a background, because you will not see everything of them back, but most of the times I use collage or something like this to set the mood of what I'm making and to create some texture, and it will always shine through. I love layering, but don't be afraid to cover up what you are doing. So I'm going to just randomly add these things on my 12 by 12 piece of cardstock. So this is some 12 by 12 cardstock. It's a pretty thick cardstock, and some of my papers are pretty thick and some of them are not. But I am just going to add these pieces. I didn't think about this beforehand. I just knew I wanted to cover up the whole white cardstock with papers. And what I'm doing here is I keep in mind that I add pieces of this pattern paper around, so it's more balanced. So I just tear them up and stick them in, but keeping in mind that everywhere is something of each pattern, so it's not blocked in a sense, because the whole thing will turn into 6 postcards. So I want to do a shout out to Leanne from Creatively Free to Be Me, because she's the inspiration behind the way that I'm doing this right now. She does this very often. I've seen videos of her doing postcards for her Patreon members this way or other projects, and I really wanted to try that out, but I never did because we have tons of projects we want to try out. But I thought this was the perfect time to try something like this, and I really enjoyed working this way, because when you work on a piece like this, you never know what is going to be cut up and how it is going to look. So I really enjoyed that. So Leanne, I want to thank you for sharing that technique with us, and I'm definitely going to do this more often. I'm still sending out some of these postcards to some pen pals or subscribers, and I think I want to make more of these, because sometimes I don't have the time to create a unique art piece for everyone, because of course that takes double up the time for making snail mail, but I do want to send some of my art. So I think I will do this more often in the future. Now I know how to do it, and I really enjoyed it. So I used Modpodge to stick everything down, and I also add a layer on top of it to make sure that it is really stuck down. And I also ripped up my pieces of paper, so for some more texture, and now I'm drying everything off, and this is the start of my background, and I love that it is so colorful. So now I'm going in with some transparent gesso, and the reason for that is that I didn't want to push the colors back in the background. I really wanted this to be bright and in your face and happy and positive, and that's really what I wanted. So I just used the transparent gesso so that my paint has something to stick onto, and that it will not come off. That's why you use a primer. Of course, you can also use a white gesso to put something back into the background, but mainly the main reason why you use gesso is because it's a primer for your paint, and your paint will stick beautifully to it. So now I'm going in with my Dylusions paint. As I said, I really wanted to have something bright and fun, and my Dylusions paints are perfect for that because they are such bright colors. And with these paints, I'm actually doing the same as with the background. I make sure that there is some of each color everywhere to make, I don't know really how to say it. As you see, I work usually in parts of 3 or 4. And I'm making sure that I divide the colors pretty well. So I have all these colors in rainbow colors, and they are amazing. I love these paints. So I'm just going to put that on this piece, and I'm going to cover my whole background. So you will see the papers through them because these paints are translucent, and also because I didn't use white gesso. So you will see the papers, and that will give some extra texture and some interest to your background. And once I have more to say, I will come back to you. I'm just going to paint this background, and well, the key with this is don't get too worried about it. Doing mixed media is all about layering, and everything goes through an ugly stage. And after I painted this was the ugly stage, but it will get better, and I will show you how to do that. So I will come back when I have something more to say. So after I was done painting, I dried, of course, the whole thing off, and then I grabbed this big Kaisercraft stencil with leaves, and I'm going to take some white linen Dylusions paint, and I'm going to stencil it all over the 12 by 12 paper. But as you can see, my stencil isn't big enough. I just make sure that where I overlap the stencil, it doesn't really look like there is a harsh line. Of course, the pattern doesn't completely match up, but it's close enough that it doesn't really show through. And I thought this really already made such a big difference, because now I have 3 layers on there. I have the layer of papers, I have the layer of paint, and now I have a layer of stenciling. And next I go in with some Dina Wakley stamps, and I love her stamps because they have such great textures and they add such nice background elements to your project. So I'm also going to stamp this all over, and I'm using first degree stamping, second degree stamping, and third degree stamping, so you get a color variation. And I do this with 2 of her stamps, and then I'm also going to add one other stamp that you will also see. If you wonder what supplies I used, everything is listed down below in the description box, and if I can find it online, it is also linked down below. Some of them are affiliate links and some of them are not, just so you know. You don't pay anything extra, but if you order through the link, I will get a small commission, and that would help out me and my channel, of course. But you don't have to, just so you know. So here I go in with the 3rd stamp, and now I'm pretty happy with my background, because now it really looks like one of my art journal pages. And that is also how I approached this background. I approached it as it was one of my art journal pages. Now I'm going to go splatter crazy with the gold, because I know I'm going to cut this 12 by 12 piece up in 6 postcards, so the postcards will be 4 by 6. I want to have gold splatters on all the cards, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to cut. Of course, I have, it's down the middle and everything, but you're not quite sure where the cut is going to be, so I made sure that I had enough splatters on there. And of course, who doesn't love a bit of gold, right? So now I'm going to measure out my postcards, and what I do is I divide it in half and then I divide it in 3s, but I'm not going to use my paper trimmer for this. There's a lot of paper and layers and cardboard under there, and I think my blade wouldn't like this. So I'm just going to do this old-fashioned way, like I did in my old videos when I didn't have a paper trimmer. I'm going to measure it out, and I'm going to make some lines and cut it with my scissors. And now I have 6 postcards or 6 backgrounds ready. And now the fun part starts, because they are all going to look a little bit different but with the same elements. Of course, I'm going to add a doodly border, because you know me, I have to do a doodly border on everything, right? And it was also a good starting point for me, because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So adding the doodly border was just one step more I knew I would love, because this is such a different approach from what I usually do. Now I'm going to draw in some hearts, and I'm going to add 3 hearts with 3 different sizes, because that's the way I like to do it. But I made sure that they're a bit more on the left side of the card and not in the middle. I don't really like compositions that have a centered piece, because it's so straightforward. I like when things are a bit on the side or off the card or anything like that. So I made sure that I drew them a little bit on the side. And now I'm going to paint them in with some white linen, because I wanted to color the hearts, but because of the colorful background, the paint wouldn't be the true color. It would very differ from shade because of the color underneath. So I thought a white base layer would really help get the color that I'm going to put on there more true. And I'm going to repeat this process for all the cards. So I work in these steps, and I edit those out because it's simply the same as I did on the first card. So that is why I edited that out. But that is how I like to work, from step to step. I don't like to finish one card and then start a new one. It makes the process very long and very... it's not really nice to do, because then you see all your postcards and you're like, I have this one ready and now I have to do 5 more. But if you work in these steps, it's quite repetitive and it's quite easy to do. So that is what I did. I also really wanted some shading behind the hearts, so I took one of my gelatos and I added the shading first before I added my paint on top of the hearts, because a gelato smear and I didn't want to have the shading on top of the red color. So that is why I worked in these layers. So now I'm going to paint in these hearts, and I'm going to add a bit more layering and a bit more, making sure that the color is prominent and dominant in there and not taking away the background, not taking away from it. I also had to check if the gelato would mess a lot with this color, because the gelato is water soluble, so it also of course activated a little bit, and I was just curious if it would take over my paint color too much, but I liked it. So I am going to continue this process, and I am going to do this for all the hearts. Here you see me adding some more colors. And the beauty of this Dylusions paint is that they dry really, really quick. So once I was finished with the last card, the first card was already dry enough to work on again. So that is also what I really liked about working in these steps. So here you see all the cards. I did the same to all the cards, but because I drew all of them differently and I painted all of them differently, they all look a little bit different, but they are still the same. Now I'm going in with my Posca paint marker and I'm going to outline the hearts, because I felt like they were getting a bit lost and it didn't look finished. So I'm going to doodle around the hearts and do like the doodly border I do around the border also in the hearts. That's also something I sometimes like to do, and I thought it would really help these hearts to stand out from the background, because this background is busy and it's colorful and it's bright, so I needed something to make it stand out a little bit more, and that is why I chose to do this sketchy doodly outline on my hearts. So after that, of course, I'm going to do that to all the cards. And my cards weren't completely dry yet, but I was impatient, so some of them were a bit hard to work on, but I don't mind. Now I missed some brightness and some light in there, so I'm also taking this jelly roll and I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did with the Posca marker, but just with the jelly roll, to add a bit of a sketchy white line in there. And I just follow what I already did. So it was very easy to just add this line as well. And like I said, the first card was already dry before I started, when I worked on the last card, so it was very easy to continue my process. Then I also decided that my border needed some more white. So I'm also going to add that with this jelly roll. And I also do that to all the cards. Then I am going to check how my cards look. And I love how they look together. And they're all the same but different, which I really enjoyed. Now I'm going in for some white splatters because I still thought they were so dense and so too much, and they needed a bit of toning down. Of course I went for this look, but it was just a little bit too much. So I thought white splatters fix everything. Splattering fix everything. So I added some white splatters to these cards, and I purposely left them like this, laying there like this, so I could work on them all at the same time. And I, as you can see, I take my brush to the top left corner and the bottom right corner, so there is this diagonal of splatters. Of course my splatters go everywhere, but I wanted to have two spots where they were concentrated. And I also wanted to layer them up with the hearts to give some more dimension and a bit more depth in my pieces and in my postcards. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm going splatter crazy. After that, I'm going to dry this off because I didn't want to wait for this to dry, and I missed something. So I'm taking this Tim Holtz stencil, Harlequin, and I am taking some pewter paint from Amsterdam acrylic, and it's quite a translucent paint, so you can see the layers underneath, but it gives a little bit of shimmer, and it also tones down some of the parts a little bit, which I really enjoyed. And as you can see, I also did that to the top left and the bottom right of each card. So now going on to finishing off these postcards. So I'm going to take some white acrylic paint, and I'm going to give my card a base for a word. And the word that I chose to put on these cards is strijders, and that is Dutch for fighters. And I thought it would be fun to add something Dutch on there. I've been sending out these postcards to certain pen pals who have had a rough time or are really having a personal battle, and I wanted to send them some positivity. And I wanted to send them, you are a warrior, you can do this, and you are amazing. And that is what I tried to say with these postcards to my pen pals. And I thought it was fun to add something Dutch, but I write the translation on the backs of the cards for everyone, except if they understand Dutch. So here are some still shots of all the postcards, and I hope that you liked this video. If you did, I would love it if you would give me a thumbs up. I would also love it if you would consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye!